At a Navy Marine joint base, the atmosphere in the briefing room crackles with tension. A woman in standard fatigue sits quietly, reviewing logistics data. She wears no visible insignia, her uniform stripped of decoration. The Marine commander notices her silence and smirks. "You're awfully quiet, soldier. What's your rank?" The men chuckle. "What are you? A corporal? A sergeant?" She looks up slowly, eyes sharp but calm. "Four-star general," she replies. The room goes dead silent. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing for more moments where quiet strength speaks louder than rank. The commander's face drains of color as he reads her file. Her name is classified under Joint Special Operations Command. The fluorescent lights in the secure briefing room at Joint Naval Base Havston buzzed with the same intensity as the officers gathered around the tactical display. Maps and surveillance images covered the central table, bathed in harsh white light that cast sharp shadows across serious faces. Commander Thaddeus Merrick stood at the head of the table, his broad shoulders squared beneath his impeccably pressed uniform. "Intelligence confirms hostile movement through these corridors," Merrick said, his voice carrying the natural authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. He traced a line across the digital map with his index finger. "Operation Shadowfall requires precision timing. We'll have a 3-minute window to extract the asset before reinforcements arrive." The 7 Marine officers surrounding him nodded in unison. Lieutenant Myers, the youngest of the group, leaned forward to study the terrain markings. "Sir, what about alternative extraction routes if primary is compromised?" Merrick's mouth tightened into a thin line. "There won't be alternatives. We execute perfectly or not at all." From the back of the room came the subtle sound of someone shifting position, heads turned toward the source. A woman in standard issue fatigues who stood near the wall, silently reviewing data on a tablet. She wore no visible rank insignia or decorations, her uniform notably plain against the metal-adorned officers at the table. Merrick paused, noticing the distraction she'd created. "Is there a problem?" The woman looked up briefly, her gray eyes meeting his before returning to her tablet. "The intel suggests a secondary patrol pattern in this quadrant. Your window may be closer to 90 seconds. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. The officers exchanged glances, wondering who this unmarked woman was to question Commander Merrick's assessment. Merrick's expression hardened as he studied her. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, her posture military straight but relaxed in a way that suggested years of service. Something about her calm demeanor disrupted the ordered hierarchy of his briefing room. "You're awfully quiet back there," he said, a hint of amusement entering his voice. The other officers caught his tone and straightened, sensing the subtle shift in the room's power dynamic. "What's your clearance level anyway?" She continued reviewing the data, making notes with efficient movements. Merrick stepped away from the table, moving toward her with deliberate steps. The officers watched, a few smiling slightly at the approaching confrontation. "What are you, supply chain liaison? Administrative staff?" His tone grew increasingly patronizing. The woman finally looked up, her face composed. Nothing in her expression revealed discomfort at being the center of attention. "I'm asking you a direct question, soldier," Merrick said, his voice sharpening. "What's your rank?" The room fell silent. Even the constant hum of the air conditioning seemed to fade away. "That's not relevant to the mission parameters, Commander," she replied, her voice quiet, but carrying clearly to every corner of the room. Lieutenant Myers inhaled sharply at her response. No one spoke to Commander Merrick that way, especially not someone without visible rank. Merrick's eyes narrowed. "Everything in my briefing room is relevant when I say it is." The woman held his gaze without challenging or submitting, a perfect neutral that somehow felt more disruptive than either alternative would have been. After several tense seconds, Merrick turned back to the table. "As I was saying, gentlemen, our infiltration route will follow this ridgeline." But something had changed in the room. Several officers glanced back at the woman, curiosity replacing their initial dismissal. Lieutenant Commander Zephyr Donovan studied her longer than the others, a slight frown creasing his forehead, as though trying to place a half-forgotten face. The briefing continued for another 20 minutes, with Merrick detailing each phase of Operation Shadowfall. The woman remained silent, her presence a strange counterweight to Merrick's commanding performance. As he reached the extraction phase, Merrick gestured to the digital map. We'll have aerial support on standby, but terrain will limit visibility. The cloud cover forecasted for the operation window will further compromise aerial surveillance, the woman said without looking up from her tablet. Merrick's jaw tightened visibly. We'll correct these routes later when the actual tactical team reviews them. His dismissive gesture toward her was meant to end both her input and the briefing. As officers filed out, Lieutenant Commander Donovan lingered, watching the woman with a puzzled expression. He approached her as she collected her tablet. "Have we met before?" he asked quietly. "You seem familiar." She studied his face for a moment. "I don't believe so, Lieutenant Commander." "Zephyr Donovan," he offered, extending his hand. She hesitated before accepting the handshake. "Evanthea?" "Just Evanthea?" he asked with a slight smile. "For now," she replied. Donovan nodded slowly. "Well, just Evanthea. Your assessment about the patrol patterns matches what my team observed last month in the same region. I'm surprised you have access to that intel." "Information flows to where it's needed," she said, moving toward the door. "Not always," Donovan replied. "Sometimes it gets stuck behind rank and protocol." Something in her expression shifted, the barest acknowledgement of his observation. Then she was gone, leaving Donovan standing alone in the emptying briefing room. Morning brought low clouds and a fine mist that shrouded the training grounds in gray. Combat drills were underway, with Merrick's team running through tactical formations. Evanthea observed from the edge of the field, her presence seemingly forgotten in the intensity of the exercises. Lieutenant Myers struggled with calibrating the targeting system on a new piece of equipment, his frustration growing visible as the drill continued around him. Evanthea approached silently, watching his attempts for several moments before stepping closer. "The gyroscopic stabilizer needs to be reset after transport," she said quietly. Myers looked up, surprised at her presence. "I've reset it twice already." "Not the primary," she explained, reaching for the device. "May I?" After a moment's hesitation, he handed it over. Her fingers moved across the equipment with practiced precision, accessing a secondary reset mechanism hidden beneath an access panel. Within seconds, the targeting system illuminated properly. "How did you know that was there?" Myers asked, clearly impressed. "I've seen these fail in the field," she answered, handing it back. "The manual doesn't cover the transport sensitivity issues." Myers nodded appreciatively. "Thanks. I would have wasted the entire drill troubleshooting." "Lieutenant," Commander Merrick's voice cut across the training ground. He strode toward them, his expression darkening as he recognized Evanthea. "Return to your position." Myers quickly rejoined his squad, leaving Evanthea facing Merrick alone. "Giving orders now?" he called out, loud enough for nearby officers to hear. "What exactly is your role here?" Several officers paused their activities, turning to watch the confrontation. "I'm here to assess readiness," she answered calmly. "Under whose authority?" Merrick demanded, closing the distance between them. "JSOC," she replied, referencing Joint Special Operations Command. Merrick scoffed, looking her up and down with undisguised skepticism. "JSOC doesn't send unranked personnel to assess my team." He stepped closer, using his height advantage to emphasize the power disparity between them. "Let me see your credentials." Without protest, she reached into her pocket and handed him an identification card. Merrick's expression shifted as he read it, surprise briefly crossing his features before he masked it with a dismissive laugh. "This clearance level doesn't match any protocols I've seen." He handed the card back with clear disbelief. "Report to my office at 1400 hours for verification." As Evanthea walked away, she passed a group of junior officers who had been watching the exchange. Their whispers followed her. "Who shows up without proper insignia at a joint base? Must be civilian contractor playing dress-up." "Did you see Merrick's face, though? Something on that ID spooked him." She continued past them without acknowledgement, her pace unhurried despite the attention. Lieutenant Commander Donovan caught up to her at the edge of the training grounds. "You ran Talon Strike in 19, didn't you?" he asked quietly, falling into step beside her. She stopped, studying him with new intensity. "That operation remains classified, Lieutenant Commander." "My brother was with the 5th Group," Donovan continued, his voice low. "Said someone pulled his team out when intel went sideways. Never saw their face, but heard a woman gave the orders that saved their lives." Evanthea's expression remained neutral, but something shifted in her eyes, a brief recognition before the professional mask returned. Tell your brother the bourbon he left at the extraction point was appreciated, she finally said. Donovan's eyes widened slightly. So it was you. I never confirmed that, Lieutenant Commander. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. And neither will you. She resumed walking, leaving Donovan staring after her with newfound respect. The base commander's office featured the expected military precision. Awards and commendations arranged in perfect symmetry on the walls. Desk clear of all but essential items. Commander Merrick stood behind his desk as Avanthia entered exactly at 1400 hours, neither early nor late. Close the door, he ordered. She complied, noting the presence of a third person in the room. A naval officer sitting quietly in the corner chair, watching their interaction with sharp eyes. Your presence is disrupting my command, Merrick began, pacing behind his desk. No identification, no rank insignia, vague authorization. My team is preparing for a critical operation, and you're introducing unnecessary variables. Variables exist whether I identify them or not, Commander, she replied. Merrick's frustration visibly grew. JSOC follows chain of command protocols. If they had concerns about Operation Shadowfall, they would have communicated through proper channels. Some concerns require direct observation, Avanthia said. By whom? Someone who won't even state their rank? Merrick's voice rose slightly. This isn't how military assessment works. Do you always question your superior officers this way? The naval officer in the corner suddenly interjected. Merrick froze, turning toward the man who had remained silent until now. Superior officer? He laughed sharply. She's not even wearing. She doesn't need to, the naval officer said carefully, standing to reveal the insignia of a captain. Captain Lachlan Wright, Naval Intelligence. Merrick's expression hardened. With respect, Captain, even if she's operating under JSOC authority, my command should have been properly notified. You were notified, Wright replied, just not in the way you expected. Avanthia remained perfectly still during this exchange. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a new weight. Commander Merrick, Operation Shadowfall has been compromised. That's why I'm here. Someone at this base is selling intelligence. That's impossible, Merrick said, but doubt crept into his voice. My team undergoes rigorous security protocols. 3 previous operations failed with similar patterns, Avanthia continued. Your team's security protocols have been flagged at the highest levels. By whom? Merrick demanded. By me, she said simply. The admission hung in the air between them, reshaping the dynamics of the room. Captain Wright moved toward the door. I suggest you listen carefully to what she has to say, Commander. He nodded respectfully to Avanthia before leaving, closing the door behind him. Merrick remained standing, his expression a complex mix of confusion, anger, and growing concern. Who are you? He asked, his tone considerably altered from their previous encounters. Someone trying to prevent another failed mission and lost lives, she answered. Your Operation Shadowfall has critical vulnerabilities that need to be addressed before deployment. Merrick slowly sat down, the confrontational edge leaving his posture. What vulnerabilities? Information compartmentalization has been compromised. Certain details are reaching individuals who shouldn't have access. She moved to the digital display on his wall, activating it with practiced familiarity that revealed her comfort with command technology. May I? He nodded, watching as she pulled up Operation Shadowfall's security logs. Her fingers moved across the interface with expert precision, accessing deeper layers of the system than most officers could navigate. These access points show irregular patterns, she said, highlighting several entries. Information flowing where it shouldn't. Merrick studied the display, his tactical mind processing the implications. This could be explained by system updates or cross-training. It could, she acknowledged, but combined with the failure patterns from previous operations, it suggests deliberate information extraction. For the first time, Merrick regarded her with something approaching professional respect. What do you recommend? Feed controlled misinformation through these channels. Watch where it goes. Maintain the appearance of normal operation while we identify the source. The "we" wasn't lost on Merrick. Whatever her real identity, she was now inserting herself directly into his command structure. I'll need time to consider this, he said finally. Time is something we don't have, Avanthia replied. Operation Shadowfall deploys in 72 hours. I'm still in command here, Merrick reminded her, some of his earlier resistance returning. "For now," she said, her words carrying a weight that lingered in the room after she departed. Night fell over the base, bringing with it a heavy rain that drummed against the windows of the officers' quarters. Evanthea sat alone in her assigned room, the space revealing nothing of its temporary occupant. No personal items, no photographs, nothing to suggest individuality or connection. She removed her standard-issue jacket, revealing a compression shirt beneath. In the mirror's reflection, severe scarring ran across her right shoulder and upper back, the distinctive pattern of wounds from a high-explosive fragmentation device. The kind of injury that ended most military careers, or at least relegated the survivor to desk duty. From a secure case beneath her bed, she withdrew a small metal box. It opened to her thumbprint, revealing a silver insignia she never wore and a worn photograph of a younger version of herself, standing beside the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Both wore formal dress uniforms in the image, medals glinting under official photography lights. Evanthea activated a secure communication device. Its signal scrambled beyond conventional detection capabilities. "Authentication Omega-74 Delta," she spoke quietly into the device. After a brief pause, a male voice responded, "Authenticated. Report status." "Sir, the security breach is worse than we thought. I'll need to accelerate the timeline." "Resistance?" "Expected levels. Captain Wright has provided necessary support." "And Commander Merrick?" Evanthea paused, considering her assessment. Competent, but overconfident. Typical profile of officers who rose quickly during the extended conflicts. He values rank over substance. "Your recommendation?" "Salvageable, depending on his response to what comes next." "Understood. You have full operational authority. Use it as needed." "Yes, sir." The communication ended with the same abruptness it had begun. Evanthea returned the insignia and photograph to their case, securing it once more beneath her bed. As she moved to close the blinds, she noticed Lieutenant Commander Donovan walking through the rain toward the officers' club. His earlier recognition of her connection to Talon Strike represented both a risk and an opportunity. People with good situational awareness noticed details others missed, including security breaches. The rain continued through the night, washing away footprints and erasing visible trails across the base. By morning, the world appeared cleaner but less defined, boundaries blurred by lingering mist that rose from the wet ground. Evanthea began her day before sunrise, running the perimeter of the base in the gray pre-dawn light. Her pace was measured and sustainable, not the eager sprint of young officers proving themselves, but the consistent rhythm of someone who understood that endurance mattered more than initial speed. As she completed her third circuit, she noticed Lieutenant Commander Donovan waiting near the training facility entrance, 2 steaming cups in hand. "Coffee?" he offered as she approached. "Black, no sugar, military standard." She slowed but didn't stop. "How did you know my schedule?" "I didn't," he admitted. "I've been here since 0500, figured you for an early riser." She completed another 20 meters before circling back, accepting the cup with a nod of thanks. The coffee was strong and bitter, exactly what the early hour demanded. "You're different from most JSOC visitors we get," Donovan observed. "How many have you met?" she asked. "3 that I know of, probably more that I don't. They usually arrive with entourages and demand immediate access to everything." "Effectiveness isn't always loud," she replied. Donovan smiled slightly. "That's what I thought when I saw you in the briefing. You were reading everyone, not just the mission data." "People reveal more than they realize," she agreed, sipping the coffee. "Including me? Especially you, Lieutenant Commander. You notice things others miss, but keep your observations to yourself. That's rare." Before he could respond, both their secure communications devices activated simultaneously. The base-wide alert tone echoed across the grounds, a critical security notification. "All officers report to Command Center, security protocol echo in effect." They exchanged a glance of professional concern before moving quickly toward the central facility, joining streams of personnel responding to the alert. The command center hummed with controlled urgency as officers took their stations. Screens displayed security lockdown procedures initiating across the base, automated protocols designed to contain information breaches. Commander Merrick stood at the central console, barking orders as reports flowed in from different departments. "Network isolation confirmed, all outbound communications suspended, internal systems moving to secure backup. Avanthia entered quietly, positioning herself at the periphery of the activity. Captain Wright appeared moments later, moving directly to her side. "It's happened," he said simply. She nodded once. "Timing matches our prediction." "What prediction?" Commander Merrick demanded, turning from the console to face them. His expression tightened upon seeing Avanthia. "What do you know about this?" "Critical mission data for Operation Shadowfall has been accessed and transmitted outside secure channels," she stated. The room's activity seemed to slow as attention shifted to their conversation. "How could you possibly know that? We just detected the breach ourselves," Merrick challenged. "Because I've been tracking the pattern for weeks," she replied. "This is the fourth such breach, each preceding a failed operation." Lieutenant Myers approached with a data tablet. "Sir, preliminary trace suggests the transmission originated from within this facility. Someone with command-level access." Merrick's face darkened with anger and concern. "That's impossible. Everyone in this room has been thoroughly vetted." "Not everyone," a junior officer suggested, looking pointedly at Avanthia. The accusation hung in the air, drawing nods of agreement from several others. "She shows up without identification, starts questioning operations, and suddenly we have a security breach," the officer continued. Merrick studied Avanthia, conflict evident in his expression. "Where were you between 200 and 400 hours?" "Sleeping," she replied calmly. "Like most of your officers." "Can anyone verify that?" "No." The simple admission increased the suspicion directed at her. Murmurs spread through the room as officers exchanged theories. "This is a waste of time," Captain Wright interjected. "We need to contain the breach before—" "Before what?" Merrick interrupted. "Before more damage is done? I'd say that starts with securing all unknown elements." He gestured to 2 security personnel. "Escort our visitor to Detention Room 3, secure her communications devices." Wright stepped forward. "Commander, I strongly advise against—" "This is still my base, Captain," Merrick stated firmly. "Until proven otherwise, everyone is suspect, especially those who appeared just before the breach." The security officers moved toward Avanthia, uncertainty evident in their approach. She made no move to resist or evade, her expression unchanged despite the dramatic shift in her situation. Lieutenant Commander Donovan watched the scene with growing concern. "Sir, with respect, detaining a JSOC representative without proper cause could—" "I determine what constitutes proper cause, Lieutenant Commander," Merrick cut him off. "Return to your station." As the security officers reached Avanthia, Captain Wright moved to the central communications console, accessing an emergency override system rarely used outside war scenarios. "This has gone far enough," he said, entering an authentication code that immediately silenced all systems in the room. The screens flickered, then displayed a single authentication request. "Command authority verification required." Wright turned to Avanthia. "I believe it's time, ma'am." The room fell completely silent as all eyes turned to her. Commander Merrick's expression shifted from anger to confusion as he watched Captain Wright's deferential behavior. Avanthia stepped forward, her bearing subtly changing as she moved. A straightening of her already perfect posture, a shift in her gaze that commanded attention without effort. She approached the central console with calm authority. "Clear the room," she ordered, her voice quiet but carrying to every corner. Merrick turned, fury replacing his confusion. "You have no authority to—" "General Avanthia Reeves, 4-star, Joint Special Operations Command," she stated, her voice cutting through his protest. "Authentication code Sierra Tango 721 Echo Foxtrot." The revelation fell like a thunderclap in the silent room. Captain Wright immediately stood at attention. "General Reeves, ma'am." Merrick stared in shock, his mouth opening but no words emerging. Around the room, officers froze in various states of disbelief as the implications of her words registered. "That's not possible," Merrick finally managed. "There's no 4-star named." Lieutenant Commander Donovan approached with a red folder that had just emerged from the secure printer. "Sir, this just came through on secure channels." His hand trembled slightly as he placed it before Merrick. "Have you ever witnessed someone's true identity reveal itself in an unexpected moment? The quiet person who suddenly shows incredible expertise, or the humble coworker revealed to be more accomplished than anyone imagined? Share your story in the comments and subscribe if you want to discover what happens when Commander Merrick realizes exactly who he's been dismissing all this time. Merrick's hands trembled slightly as he opened the red folder. His eyes widened as he scanned the contents. Avanthia's full service record, most of it heavily redacted with black lines, but her rank and authentication codes clearly visible at the top. Attached was a citation signed by the Secretaries of Defense and the President. The command center remained frozen in shocked silence. Officers who moments ago had been suspicious now stood rigid, processing the revelation that they had been in the presence of a 4-star general, without recognizing it. "This is impossible," Merrick whispered, his voice having lost all its earlier authority. "Your name isn't on any active duty roster of flag officers." "That's by design," General Reeves replied. Her voice remained as measured as before, but now carried the unmistakable weight of supreme command. "My operations require anonymity." Captain Wright addressed the stunned room. "General Reeves commands a classified division within Joint Special Operations Command. Her presence here was authorized at the highest levels." Merrick continued reading through the file, the color draining from his face as he reached a section detailing operations, where General Reeves had extracted compromised units, including 3 Marine divisions he had served with early in his career. The most recent 5 years of her service record were completely classified, not even titles or locations visible beneath the heavy redactions. She hadn't been sent to observe. She had been sent to save them from themselves. "I apologize for the deception, Commander," General Reeves said, though her tone suggested it was a professional courtesy rather than actual regret. "But it was necessary to assess your command without the interference that rank often creates." Before Merrick could respond, Lieutenant Myers rushed into the command center, out of breath. "Sir, we've confirmed the data breach. Operational details of Shadowfall have been transmitted to an unknown receiver. We're attempting to track the signal now." General Reeves stepped forward, addressing the room with quiet authority. "This base has been compromised. Operation Shadowfall is hereby suspended by my authority. Captain Wright will coordinate with Naval Intelligence to begin a full security review." The officers in the room glanced between Merrick and Reeves, the chain of command suddenly unclear in this unprecedented situation. Merrick straightened, attempting to regain his composure. "With all due respect, General, this is still my command. I should coordinate the security review." "Under normal circumstances, yes," Reeves replied. "But these circumstances are far from normal. Someone with command-level access is selling intelligence, Commander. Until we determine who, standard protocols are suspended." The air in the room grew heavier with each word. The implication was clear. No one was above suspicion, including Merrick himself. Lieutenant Commander Donovan stepped forward. "General, our internal tracking indicates the transmission originated from the secure communications hub on the east side of the base. Only 17 personnel have access to that facility. Compile a list of everyone who accessed that hub in the last 48 hours, Reeves ordered. Cross-reference with previous breaches." "Yes, ma'am." The officers in the room began to move with renewed purpose, the shock of her revelation giving way to professional response. The command structure had shifted before their eyes, but military training prevailed. They followed the highest-ranking officer present, regardless of personal feelings. Merrick remained standing at the central console, the red folder still open before him, struggling to reconcile his previous treatment of Reeves with the reality now facing him, his career, his command, his reputation, all suddenly balanced on a knife's edge. "Commander," Reeves addressed him directly, "I need your security team's full cooperation. This isn't about undermining your authority. It's about finding a leak before more lives are lost." Merrick nodded stiffly. "Of course, General. My team is at your disposal." "Good. We'll continue this discussion in private." She turned to the room. "Captain Wright will coordinate the immediate response. All personnel will maintain normal operations while security protocols are implemented. No communications regarding this situation leave this room. Is that clear?" A chorus of "Yes, ma'am" echoed through the command center. "Dismissed." As the officers filed out, Reeves gestured for Merrick to follow her to his office. The walk through the corridors was silent, the base continuing its routine activities, unaware of the dramatic shift that had occurred within the command structure. Inside the office, Merrick closed the door and turned to face her. For a moment, neither spoke, the tension between them palpable. "Why?" he finally asked, a complex mix of emotions in that single word. Why what, Commander? Why the deception? Why am I here? Why reveal myself now? All of it. Reeves considered him carefully before answering. 3 operations similar to Shadowfall have failed in the past 8 months. 12 operatives killed. Valuable intelligence compromised. Analysis pointed to a pattern of information leaks originating from this command. And you couldn't simply inform me through proper channels? We did, twice. Security reviews were conducted. Nothing was found. Merrick frowned. I received no such notifications. That's part of the problem, Commander. The notifications were acknowledged and dismissed by someone using your authorization codes. The implication hit Merrick like a physical blow. Someone has been using my access without my knowledge? Or with it, Reeves replied evenly. That's what we needed to determine. Your reaction just now suggests the former rather than the latter. You suspected me? Anger flashed across his face. My service record is exemplary. So is the record of everyone else on our suspect list, she countered. Traitors rarely advertise their intentions, Commander. Merrick moved behind his desk, needing the symbolic protection of his position. What happens now? Now we set a trap, Reeves said. We feed controlled misinformation through selected channels and watch where it goes. But first, I need to know who you trust implicitly on your staff. After what you've just told me, I'm not sure I trust anyone. Good. That's the right mindset for this situation. She moved to the window, looking out at the base, continuing its normal operations. Lieutenant Commander Donovan, what's your assessment of him? Merrick considered the question. Highly competent, sometimes too questioning of orders, but thorough. His security clearance is impeccable. He recognized me, Reeves noted. Or at least, he connected me to a classified operation I ran 3 years ago. That shows unusual perception. Is that a concern? On the contrary, we need officers who see beyond the obvious. He stays on the investigation team. A knock at the door interrupted them. Captain Wright entered without waiting for permission, his expression grave. General, we've identified an anomaly in the communication patterns. For the past 6 months, someone has been accessing classified data at precisely 300 hours every 3rd day. Automated extraction, Reeves observed. Wright nodded. Set to coincide with routine system maintenance when such access would be masked by normal administrative functions. Who has authorization for that system during maintenance periods? That's the problem, ma'am. According to the logs, Commander Merrick personally authorized all maintenance access. Merrick stood abruptly. That's impossible. I delegate maintenance authorization to Lieutenant Voss. He handles all routine system work. Reeves and Wright exchanged a significant look. Lieutenant Voss, Reeves repeated. Tell me about him. Marcus Voss, with me for 3 years, communications specialist. Quiet, efficient, keeps to himself mostly. Too quiet, perhaps, Wright suggested. His personnel file shows multiple deployments to regions that would put him in contact with hostile intelligence agencies. Half my team has similar deployment histories, Merrick countered. That proves nothing. No, but it's a starting point, Reeves said. Where is Lieutenant Voss now? Merrick checked the duty roster on his terminal. Scheduled for communications hub duty until 1600 hours. Perfect. That gives us time to prepare. Reeves turned to Wright. Set up surveillance on Voss. Discreet, continuous monitoring. I want to know every system he accesses, every communication he sends. Yes, ma'am. Commander Merrick, you'll continue normal operations. Act as though nothing has changed. If Voss is our leak, we don't want to spook him before we have definitive proof. Merrick nodded, his professional training overriding the personal shock still evident in his eyes. And the rest of my team? Minimal disclosure on a need-to-know basis. Lieutenant Commander Donovan can coordinate the surveillance operation with Captain Wright. As Wright left to implement the surveillance, Merrick remained standing behind his desk, struggling to process the rapid evolution of events. In less than 24 hours, his command had been effectively superseded, his authority called into question, and one of his trusted officers identified as a potential traitor. I know this is difficult, Commander, Reeves said, reading his expression. Having your judgment questioned, your command scrutinized. It feels like a personal failure. With respect, General, you don't know how it feels. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. 20 years ago, I was a junior officer leading a reconnaissance team in hostile territory. My commanding officer dismissed my intelligence assessment because I didn't have the rank to make it sound important. 12 hours later, we walked into an ambush that killed 4 of my team. The statement hung between them, reshaping Merrick's understanding of her actions since arriving at the base. The officer who dismissed me was following protocol, Reeves continued. He listened to the higher-ranking intelligence officer instead of the junior lieutenant who'd actually observed the terrain. He wasn't malicious, just hierarchical. The military trains us to respect rank above all else, sometimes to our detriment. Is that why you arrived without insignia? To test our response? Partly, I wanted to see who would listen to competence rather than rank, who would evaluate information on its merits rather than its source. The unspoken assessment of his own performance in that test lingered in the air between them. I failed your test, Merrick acknowledged. The test isn't over yet, Commander. How you respond now matters more than your initial reaction. Before he could reply, Merrick's secure communication device activated. Lieutenant Commander Donovan's voice came through, tension evident despite the professional tone. Commander, we have a situation at the communications hub. Lieutenant Voss has initiated an unauthorized data transfer. Security personnel are en route. Do not engage, Reeves ordered immediately, taking the device from Merrick. Maintain surveillance only. We need to see who receives the transmission. Understood, General, but there's another complication. The data he's transmitting appears to be Operation Shadowfall's full tactical plan. Reeves and Merrick exchanged alarmed looks. How is that possible? Merrick demanded. Shadowfall's details were compartmentalized. Voss shouldn't have access to the full plan. Someone consolidated the data, Reeves concluded. Voss may not be working alone. All the more reason to apprehend him now, before he destroys evidence, Merrick argued. Reeves considered the options, weighing the risks of each approach. No, we follow the transmission. It might lead us to his contact. And if it doesn't, then we've lost nothing. Voss will still be there to apprehend afterward. Merrick clearly disagreed, but nodded his acceptance of the order. Yes, ma'am. The next hour passed in tense silence as they monitored the surveillance of Lieutenant Voss. The communications hub's camera showed him working normally, giving no outward indication of his treachery. Only the data flowing through the systems revealed the truth. Classified information being methodically extracted and transmitted through encrypted channels. Transmission complete, Donovan reported. Signal tracking indicates it was routed through 7 proxy servers before reaching its destination. Where? Reeves asked. That's the strange part, ma'am. It appears to have terminated at an IP address within this base. Merrick straightened. Within the base? That's impossible. Not impossible, Reeves corrected. Just unexpected. The recipient could be using the base's own security protocols to mask their actual location. Or, Wright suggested, joining them with a data tablet. They could actually be on the base. We've been assuming the intelligence was being sold to external agencies. But what if it's being collected here first? A physical handoff would be far more secure than digital transmission, Reeves acknowledged. Voss collects the data, passes it to someone with the ability to move freely on and off the base. Supply personnel, civilian contractors, Merrick suggested. Or another officer, Wright said quietly. The uncomfortable possibility settled over the room. If true, it meant the conspiracy reached higher than they had initially suspected. We need to apprehend Voss now, Merrick insisted, before he makes contact with his handler. This time, Reeves nodded. Agreed, but quietly. We don't want to alert anyone else who might be involved. Merrick activated his communication device. Security team to communications hub. Discreet approach. Detain Lieutenant Voss for questioning. Yes, sir, came the immediate response. The security cameras showed the team approaching the hub, their movements casual to avoid drawing attention. They entered the facility where Voss was working, but the interior cameras had been deactivated. Standard protocol during certain communications operations, but now a concerning blind spot. No visual inside, Donovan reported. Security team has entered, but isn't responding to communication checks. Something's wrong, Reeves said, moving toward the door. Commander, with me. Captain Wright, lock down all exit points from the base. No one leaves until we resolve this. Merrick followed her out of the office, their pace quickening as they moved through the corridors toward the communications hub. Despite her lack of visible rank insignia, personnel instinctively moved aside as they passed, responding to the natural authority in her bearing. They reached the hub to find the security team unconscious just inside the entrance. The equipment was still running, but Lieutenant Voss was nowhere to be seen. "Medical team to communications hub," Merrick ordered into his device. 4 officers down. Reeves moved through the facility, checking each room with practiced efficiency. He's gone, and he disabled the interior tracking systems. "Base lockdown should contain him," Merrick said, checking the vital signs of the downed security personnel. "They're alive, just unconscious." "Non-lethal chemical agent," Reeves observed, noting the distinctive odor in the air. "Military grade, not something a lieutenant should have access to. Unless someone provided it to him," Merrick concluded. "Someone with higher clearance." The implications of that statement hung between them as medical personnel arrived to treat the security team. The situation had escalated beyond a simple case of intelligence selling. This was a coordinated operation with multiple participants. "Commander Merrick to Command Center," his communication device suddenly announced. "Emergency Protocol Alpha." They exchanged concerned glances before moving quickly toward the command center. Emergency Protocol Alpha indicated a security breach at the highest level, the kind that threatened the entire base. The command center was in controlled chaos when they arrived. Lieutenant Commander Donovan met them at the entrance, his expression grave. "Sir General, we have multiple security breaches across the base. Communication systems compromised, weapons locker 7B accessed without authorization, and a perimeter sensor failure on the northeast quadrant. Coordinated attack," Reeves stated. "This isn't just about selling intelligence anymore, it's an active infiltration." "Or exfiltration," Merrick suggested. "Creating chaos to cover an escape." Reeves nodded her agreement. "Voss is running, and someone's helping him create a diversion." "The weapons locker breach is our primary concern," Donovan continued. "Inventory shows 6 M4 carbines and 2 cases of ammunition missing." "Armed and dangerous," Merrick said grimly. "All personnel to defensive positions. Security teams to full alert status." "Belay that," Reeves countermanded immediately. "That's exactly what they want. A visible response concentrated on obvious threats while they slip away through the confusion." Merrick stiffened at having his order overridden, but didn't object. "Lieutenant Commander," Reeves continued, "initiate silent containment protocol. Minimum visible response, maximum sensor coverage. I want every heat signature on this base tracked and identified." "Yes, ma'am." "And get me satellite thermal imaging of the perimeter. If they're planning to escape through the northeast quadrant, I want eyes on that area." Donovan moved to implement her orders, leaving Reeves and Merrick standing at the central console. "You think they've planned this from the beginning," Merrick observed. "That Voss was always meant to be discovered." "It's what I would do," she replied. "Create a diversion with one compromised agent while the primary operative escapes with the actual intelligence. Voss is expendable." "Precisely." The realization shifted their understanding of the situation. They weren't dealing with a simple security breach, but a sophisticated intelligence operation. "Satellite imagery coming online now," Donovan reported. The main screen filled with a thermal view of the base perimeter, heat signatures glowing against the cooler background. "There!" Reeves pointed to movement near the northeast fence line. 3 signatures moving in a tactical formation. That's not Voss running for his life. That's a trained team executing an extraction. 4th signature approaching from the east, Merrick noted. Potential vehicle for exfiltration. Reeves studied the pattern for a moment before making her decision. "Commander, take a team to intercept. Non-lethal approach if possible. We need them alive for questioning." "Understood," Merrick replied, already moving toward the door. "Donovan, with me. Alert Tactical Response Team 2 to meet us at Northeast Access Point 7. "And Commander," Reeves called after him, "be careful. These aren't amateurs." The warning was unnecessary but appreciated. A professional courtesy between senior officers now operating as equals rather than as evaluator and subject. As Merrick and Donovan departed, Captain Wright approached Reeves with an update. "General, we've identified Lieutenant Voss's movement pattern. He's heading for the administrative wing, not the perimeter." "The administrative wing?" Reeves frowned. "What's his target there?" "Unknown, ma'am. That area houses personnel records, supply management, and the base commander's residential quarters." Reeves considered this unexpected development. "He's not running. He's still executing his mission." "Which is?" "Something we haven't identified yet." She turned to the command console. accessing the base security systems. Show me all personnel currently in the administrative wing. The screen displayed a dozen heat signatures moving through the administrative corridors, normal staffing for that time of day. Nothing unusual, Wright observed. That's what concerns me, Reeves replied. If Voss is heading there with a specific target in mind, why hasn't the security alert affected personnel movement in that sector? The question lingered unanswered as they watched Voss's heat signature move purposefully through the base, avoiding main corridors and security checkpoints with practiced ease. He knows the security patrol patterns, Wright noted. That's high-level information, restricted to security chiefs and command staff. Someone has been very generous with classified information. Reeves agreed. Her eyes narrowed as she studied Voss's movement pattern. He's not heading for the records office or supply management. His trajectory puts him on course for the secure communications center in the East Wing. But that makes no sense, Wright protested. He just left the main communications hub. Why risk exposure to reach a smaller, less equipped facility? Unless there's something specific at that location. Reeves activated her communication device. Commander Merrick, change of plans. Voss is heading for the secure communications center in the administrative wing. Redirect your team. Negative, General, came Merrick's tense reply, the sound of running footsteps in the background. We've engaged the extraction team at the perimeter, taking heavy fire, cannot disengage. Understood, maintain your position. She turned to Wright. Captain, assemble a second team. We'll intercept Voss ourselves. Yes, ma'am. As Wright moved to gather personnel, Reeves studied the security layout of the administrative wing, identifying potential approach, vectors, and vulnerabilities. Something about this situation felt wrong. The pieces didn't fit together in a logical pattern. Why would Voss head for a secondary communications facility when he'd already transmitted the intelligence from the primary hub? What was in that specific location that warranted such risk? The answer hit her suddenly. It's not about what's there, she murmured. It's about who's there. She pulled up the duty roster for the Secure Communications Center. One name stood out immediately, Major Eleanor Hadley, the base's senior intelligence officer, and the person responsible for coordinating all operational security measures. He's not going after equipment or data, Reeves realized. He's targeting Major Hadley. Without waiting for Wright to return with the security team, Reeves moved toward the exit. This development required immediate response, and there wasn't time to assemble a proper team. General, one of the junior officers called after her. Protocol requires a security escort for command staff during active threats. I am the security, she replied, all without breaking stride. The administrative wing was eerily quiet as Reeves moved through its corridors, the normal bustle of activity replaced by an unnatural stillness. The security alert should have triggered standard protocols. Personnel sheltering in secure rooms, security teams establishing defensive positions. Instead, the area seemed simply abandoned, her combat instincts heightened, each sense attuned to potential threats. The absence of expected response was more alarming than visible danger. It suggested a level of infiltration that had compromised base security protocols themselves. The Secure Communications Center was located at the end of a reinforced corridor, its entrance protected by both electronic and physical security measures. As Reeves approached, she noted that the electronic access panel showed green, unlocked when it should have been sealed during a security alert. She drew her sidearm, moving silently to the door. From inside came the sound of voices. One male, presumably Voss, and one female, likely Major Hadley. The extraction team is in position, Voss was saying. We need to move now. The security alert complicates things, came the female reply. Reeves is sharper than we anticipated. She's already connected you to the intelligence leaks. Then we accelerate the timeline. The secondary objective becomes primary. That's not your call to make, Lieutenant. The operational parameters were clear. Parameters change when the situation changes, Voss countered. We have a 4-star general on base who wasn't supposed to be here. That changes everything. Reeves processed this exchange rapidly. Major Hadley wasn't a victim. She was Voss's handler, possibly the architect of the entire intelligence operation. And now they were discussing a secondary objective that somehow involved her presence on the base. The realization sent a chill through her. This wasn't just about stealing operational details of Shadowfall. It was something far more significant, and she had walked directly into it. Before she could retreat and call for backup, A voice spoke from behind her. "Hello, General Reeves." She turned to find Lieutenant Commander Donovan standing in the corridor, his sidearm aimed directly at her heart. "I'm afraid Commander Merrick won't be joining us," he continued, his voice calm and professional. "He's quite occupied at the perimeter with our diversion team." The pieces fell into place with devastating clarity. Donovan's early recognition of her connection to Talonstrike hadn't been coincidental or impressive. It had been informed. He'd known exactly who she was from the moment she arrived. "You've been the primary operative all along," she said, her voice steady despite the revelation. "Voss is just your public face." "Very good, General." He gestured toward the communications center door. "Major Hadley is eager to speak with you. She's been anticipating your arrival for some time." "I'm sure she has." Reeves maintained her composure, mind racing through potential scenarios and responses. "And what happens after our conversation?" Donovan's smile never reached his eyes. "That depends entirely on you, General. Some conversations end better than others." He gestured again with his weapon. "After you." Reeves entered the secure communications center to find Major Hadley standing at the central console, Lieutenant Voss positioned by the secondary exit. The room's normal communications equipment had been reconfigured, unfamiliar devices connected to the base systems. "General Reeves," Hadley greeted her with professional courtesy entirely incongruous with the situation. "Thank you for joining us. Your arrival has accelerated our timetable considerably." "Always happy to inconvenience traders," Reeves replied evenly. "Though I admit, I expected better operational security from a major with your clearance level." Hadley smiled thinly. "Our operational security is exemplary, General. You're here, aren't you? Alone, without backup, walking into a situation you don't fully understand." "Enlighten me then." "All in good time." Hadley turned to Voss. "Is the package secure?" "Yes, ma'am. Transport standing by at Extraction Point Charlie." "Excellent." She returned her attention to Reeves. "You've been quite the disruptive force since arriving, General. Commander Merrick was so easily managed before you appeared. Predictable, hierarchical, perfect for our purposes. Which are, currently, ensuring you remain in this room while certain events unfold elsewhere." The implications of that statement were immediately clear. This confrontation wasn't the main objective. It was another diversion. "What's the real target?" Reeves demanded. "I believe you've already met him," Donovan replied from behind her. "Captain Wright seemed quite eager to assist with your investigation." The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Wright wasn't just a naval intelligence officer. He was the actual target of this elaborate operation. Everything else, the intelligence leaks, the security breaches, even her own presence, had been manipulated to create the perfect opportunity for his capture. "Why Wright?" she asked, playing for time, while assessing the room for tactical advantages. "Captain Wright has access to certain intelligence that interests our employers," Hadley explained. "Intelligence regarding ongoing naval operations in the South China Sea." "Your employers," Reeves repeated. "So this isn't ideological, it's mercenary." "Ideology is for true believers, General. We prefer more tangible rewards." Outside the secure room, alarms suddenly blared, the base-wide signal for critical security breach. Hadley checked her watch with a satisfied expression. "Right on schedule. I believe that would be our extraction team securing Captain Wright." The revelation struck Reeves like a physical blow. Everything that had happened since her arrival, the discovery of Voss's suspicious activities, the security breaches, even her own confrontation with Merrick, had been orchestrated to draw attention away from the real objective. "You used me," she realized. "My investigation created the perfect distraction." "We adapt to changing circumstances, General," Hadley replied. "Your arrival was unexpected, but ultimately beneficial. A 4-star general investigating security breaches draws all eyes to her activities, leaving other operations in the shadows." The communications console suddenly activated, a voice breaking through with urgency. "Command Center to General Reeves. Captain Wright has been abducted. Repeat, Captain Wright has been taken by unknown hostiles. Commander Merrick is down. Condition critical. Please respond." Donovan moved to the console, disabling the communication with practiced efficiency. "I'm afraid the General is unavailable at the moment." Hadley checked her secure device, nodding with satisfaction at the information displayed. Extraction team reports successful acquisition of the package, proceeding to rendezvous point. You won't make it off this base, Reeves stated with quiet certainty. Every exit is monitored, every vehicle tracked. Perhaps, Hadley acknowledged, but contingencies exist for such obstacles. The lights in the communications center suddenly flickered, then failed completely, plunging the room into darkness. Emergency lighting activated moments later, casting everything in a dim red glow. That would be Phase 3, Voss observed. Base-wide power disruption. The perfect opportunity for extraction under cover of chaos and confusion. Reeves had seen such tactics before, create cascading system failures to overwhelm response capabilities. What happens now? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. Now we say goodbye, General, Hadley replied. Lieutenant Voss, proceed to Extraction Point Delta. Lieutenant Commander Donovan and I will join you shortly after completing our final task. Voss nodded, moving toward the exit. As he passed Reeves, he offered a mocking salute. It's been an honor, General. The moment he cleared the doorway, Reeves made her move. In one fluid motion, she dropped to one knee and pivoted, her right hand still gripping her concealed sidearm that Donovan had failed to secure. Years of operational experience guided her actions as she brought the weapon up and fired in a single smooth motion. The sound of the shot echoed through the small room, followed by the heavy thud of Lieutenant Commander Donovan falling to the floor. Major Hadley reached for her own weapon, but froze when she found Reeves's sidearm aimed directly at her head. That was your final mistake, Major, Reeves said calmly, assuming I came alone. The door behind Hadley opened to reveal Captain Wright, very much present and unharmed, his own weapon trained on the stunned intelligence officer. Impossible, Hadley whispered. The extraction team was intercepted and contained 20 minutes ago, Wright informed her. Your communications have been monitored since General Reeves identified Lieutenant Voss as a security risk. The realization dawned on Hadley's face. She had been caught in her own trap. The chaos she believed was covering her operation had been orchestrated to flush out her entire network. Commander Merrick, she asked, is exactly where he needs to be, Reeves replied, securing the northeast perimeter and apprehending the remainder of your extraction team. Wright moved forward to secure Hadley, while Reeves checked Donovan's condition. The shot had been precisely placed, a non-lethal wound to the shoulder that incapacitated without killing. Security team to secure communications center, Wright called into his device. 2 prisoners for transport to detention. As security personnel entered to take custody of the conspirators, Reeves holstered her weapon and turned to Wright. How bad is it? She asked quietly. 5 compromised operations. 3 officers confirmed involved in the conspiracy, possibly more, and intelligence dating back 18 months potentially in enemy hands. A significant breach, but contained now. Wright nodded grimly. Thanks to your unconventional approach, General. Reeves moved to the doorway, looking out at the base now swarming with security personnel, responding to the orchestrated alerts. Not my approach, Captain. Commander Merrick deserves credit for adapting quickly once he understood the situation. He may need to revise his initial assessment of unranked personnel in his briefing room, Wright observed with the ghost of a smile. We all have our learning moments, Captain, Reeves replied. Some are just more public than others. Security teams escorted the handcuffed Major Hadley and Lieutenant Commander Donovan through the corridor, the once trusted officers now revealed as the architects of a sophisticated intelligence operation. One question remains, General, Wright said as they watched the prisoners being led away. How did you know I wasn't actually the target? The same way I knew Donovan was involved, she answered. He recognized me too easily from a classified operation where all personnel were masked. And he knew details about the bourbon left at the extraction point, information that was never in any report. You set a trap within their trap. Intelligence work is often layers within layers, Captain. She turned to him with a rare smile. Something I believe you understand quite well. As they moved through the corridors toward the command center, personnel stopped to salute. Not because of visible rank insignia, which Reeves still didn't wear, but because word had spread throughout the base about the 4-star general who had uncovered the conspiracy. The truth of who she was had been revealed in the most dramatic way possible. The quiet woman in standard fatigues, dismissed and underestimated, had proven to be the most powerful officer on the base. Commander Merrick was waiting for them in the command center, his uniform showing signs of the firefight at the perimeter, but his bearing as professional as ever. When he saw Reeves enter, he immediately stood at attention and saluted. "General Reeves," he acknowledged formally. "Extraction team contained and secured. All hostile personnel accounted for." "Well done, Commander," she replied, returning his salute with equal formality. "Casualty report? 2 security personnel with minor injuries, no fatalities." "Excellent work." Merrick hesitated, then continued. "General, I owe you an apology. My initial assessment of your presence was—" "Exactly what our adversaries expected, Commander," she interrupted. "Sometimes being predictable has tactical advantages." Before he could respond, the command center's main screen activated, displaying an incoming transmission from Joint Special Operations Command Headquarters. The face that appeared belonged to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff himself. "General Reeves," he greeted her, his expression grave. "I understand there's been a situation." "Contained, sir," she replied. "Hostile intelligence network identified and neutralized." "Casualties?" "Minimal. We were fortunate." "Fortune tends to favor the prepared, General." He glanced at the officers standing behind her. "Commander Merrick's cooperation was instrumental?" "Absolutely, sir. Once he understood the situation, his response was exemplary." The chairman nodded, his eyes moving to Merrick. "Commander, consider yourself debriefed. General Reeves will provide a full assessment upon her return." "Yes, sir," Merrick replied, understanding the implicit message. His command performance had been evaluated at the highest level. As the transmission ended, Reeves turned to face Merrick and the assembled officers. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on the woman who had entered their base without fanfare, faced dismissal and suspicion, and ultimately saved them from a catastrophic security breach. "Commander," she said, her voice carrying the quiet authority that had been present from the beginning, though few had recognized it. "I believe we have an operation to reschedule." "Shadowfall, ma'am?" he asked. "Unless you have a better name for it." "No, ma'am." "Good." She moved to the central console, accessing the secure mission files. "Let's begin. Ever noticed how the quietest person in the room often holds the most power? Someone who watches and listens before revealing their true capabilities? Tell us about a time you misjudged someone based on their appearance or demeanor. Subscribe to see how Commander Merrick comes to terms with the revelation that will forever change his understanding of leadership in the final part of this story. 3 days after the security breach, Joint Naval Base Havston had returned to operational status. The infiltration network had been completely dismantled, with 7 compromised personnel identified and detained for military tribunal. Intelligence analysts were still assessing the extent of the information that had been compromised, but initial reports indicated that the damage had been contained before the most critical data could be extracted. In the main briefing room, the same space where Commander Thaddeus Merrick had first encountered General Avanthia Reeves, officers gathered for the rescheduled Shadowfall operation briefing. The atmosphere was markedly different now. Where tension and hierarchy had previously dominated, there was now a focused professional attentiveness. Commander Merrick stood at the briefing room door, watching his officers assemble. The events of the past few days had transformed him in subtle ways, his posture still commanding but less rigid, his awareness more comprehensive. He noticed details he would have overlooked before. Lieutenant Myers quietly mentoring a junior officer on equipment protocols, Captain Wright conferring with the intelligence team about updated regional assessments, the way his staff maintained professional focus despite the dramatic events they had witnessed. "Quite a different room than 3 days ago," a quiet voice observed beside him. Merrick turned to find General Reeves standing there, still dressed in standard fatigues without insignia. The only visible change in her appearance was the silver ring with the Navy crest now visible on her right hand, a subtle identifier that most wouldn't recognize as significant. "Yes, ma'am," he acknowledged. "Different command dynamics as well." "Growth often comes from disruption, Commander. Your team has adapted admirably." Before he could respond, Captain Wright approached them. "General, Commander, we're ready to begin." The officers came to attention as Merrick and Reeves entered the room. Every eye followed the general, not because of rank insignia, which he still didn't display, but because of the quiet authority that now everyone recognized. What had been invisible to them days before was now unmistakable, the bearing of someone who had commanded at the highest levels for years. At ease, Reeves said, as she took position at the head of the table. Commander Merrick will lead this briefing. Operation Shadowfall remains his mission. The statement was significant. She was publicly affirming his command authority, despite having the rank to assume control herself. Merrick nodded in appreciation of the gesture, before addressing the room. Operation Shadowfall has been reconfigured with enhanced security protocols, he began, activating the tactical display. All intelligence has been verified through multiple channels, and mission details have been compartmentalized with new access restrictions. The officers followed along as he detailed the revised operation. Throughout his presentation, Merrick periodically deferred to General Reeves for input, not out of obligation to rank, but out of genuine respect for her expertise. The dynamic between them had evolved into a balanced professional partnership. The extraction window has been extended to 4 minutes based on updated surveillance, Merrick continued, gesturing to the tactical map. General Reeves has provided additional JNIZOSC assets to support the primary team. Lieutenant Commander Donovan's involvement compromised certain approach vectors, Reeves added. We've developed alternatives that provide improved cover for the extraction team. The mention of Donovan's name sent a ripple through the room. His betrayal had shocked the entire command. A trusted officer revealed to be a foreign asset. The wound was still fresh. Questions? Merrick asked as he completed the operational overview. Lieutenant Myers raised his hand. Sir, given recent events, has the command structure for this operation been modified? Good question, Merrick acknowledged. General Reeves will oversee the operation from Command Center Strategic, while I will coordinate tactical execution from Forward Position Alpha. Captain Wright will serve as intelligence liaison between both elements. The clear delineation of authority addressed the uncertainty that had pervaded the base since the security breach. Officers visibly relaxed, reassured by the established framework. One more thing, Merrick added, trust has been tested here. We've seen that rank indicators don't always reveal true capability or loyalty. He glanced briefly at Reeves. From this point forward, all personnel will be evaluated on demonstrated competence rather than position or time in service. Questions and observations from any source will be considered on their merits, not their origin. The statement represented a fundamental shift in his command philosophy, one directly influenced by his experience with General Reeves. Several officers nodded in approval. Dismissed to preparation stations, Merrick concluded. Operation commences at 0600 tomorrow. As the officers filed out, Reeves remained at the table, studying the tactical display. Merrick approached after the room had emptied. Permission to speak freely, General? Always, Commander. You could run this operation yourself. JSOC authority gives you complete operational control if you wanted it. I could, she agreed, eyes still on the display. But that would teach the wrong lesson. Which is, that power must be exercised to be validated. She looked up at him. Sometimes the most effective demonstration of authority is knowing when not to use it. Merrick considered her words. I've been thinking about our first encounter, my reaction to your questions. A natural response to perceived disruption of command hierarchy. But the wrong response, he acknowledged. I evaluated your input based on visible rank rather than content. Many would have done the same, she said. The military trains us to respect the chain of command. It's necessary for battlefield cohesion. But sometimes an impediment to recognizing valuable insight, Merrick added, especially when it comes from unexpected sources. Reeves nodded, pleased with his understanding. The best commanders balance both, maintaining order while remaining open to intelligence from all levels. Is that why you operate without insignia? To test that balance? Partly, she admitted, but also because it gives me clearer vision. People reveal their true nature when they believe no one important is watching. The observation lingered between them, reshaping Merrick's understanding of leadership. He had always believed that authority flowed from visible indicators of rank and position. Reeves had demonstrated that true authority existed independent of such symbols. It was inherent in competence, judgment, and character. Operation Shadowfall will proceed as planned, Reeves said, returning to professional matters. But there's another matter we need to discuss. Ma'am, your next assignment? Merrick straightened, concern flashing briefly across his face. Being reassigned after a security breach, even one ultimately contained, often signaled career limitations. I've submitted my formal evaluation of base command to JSOC headquarters, Reeves continued, including recommendations for personnel advancement. I understand, Merrick said, his expression carefully neutral. Do you? She studied him with those penetrating gray eyes. Commander, when I arrived, I observed an officer who prioritized protocol over perception, rank over substance. That officer might have been considered for lateral transfer at best. Merrick accepted the assessment without protest. It was accurate, if uncomfortable to hear. But that's not the officer I see now, she continued. The past 3 days have revealed someone capable of adaptation, someone who can recognize error and incorporate new understanding into leadership approach. Thank you, General. Don't thank me yet, she replied with a hint of a smile. The assignment I'm recommending involves significant challenge, with proportionate opportunity. Before she could elaborate, Captain Wright entered the briefing room. Pardon the interruption, General, Commander. JSOC headquarters has confirmed receipt of all security breach documentation. They're requesting your presence for direct debrief, ma'am. When? Transport arriving in 30 minutes. Reeves nodded. Thank you, Captain. Please inform them I'll be ready. As Wright departed, Merrick realized their conversation about his future assignment would remain unfinished for now. Another lesson in military life, where uncertainty was the only constant. We'll continue this discussion after Operation Shadowfall concludes, Reeves said, rising from her seat. In the meantime, Commander, focus on mission success. Yes, ma'am. She moved toward the door, then paused. One question, Commander. If I arrived today without insignia and questioned your operational assessment in front of your team, how would you respond? Merrick considered the scenario carefully. I would evaluate the question on its merits, regardless of who asked it. And if the question revealed a flaw in your planning, I would acknowledge it and incorporate the insight, he answered without hesitation. Good information improves mission success, regardless of its source. Reeves studied him a moment longer, then nodded with satisfaction. That's why your next assignment will be advancement rather than limitation, Commander. You've learned what many officers never grasp, that leadership isn't about position. It's about perception. With that, she departed, leaving Merrick to contemplate how completely his understanding of command had transformed in just 3 days. The operations center hummed with focused activity as dawn approached. Surveillance feeds displayed the target area, weather conditions, and team positioning. Intelligence analysts monitored communication channels for any indication that the mission had been compromised. Medical personnel stood ready for contingencies. Every element of Operation Shadowfall had been meticulously prepared. General Reeves observed from a position near the central command console, her presence felt rather than announced. She had declined the offered command chair, preferring to remain mobile, watching both the operational displays and the personnel managing them. Commander Merrick's voice came through the communication system from his forward position. Havston Command, this is Shadowfall Actual. Teams in final position, awaiting execution order. Captain Wright looked to Reeves, who nodded her authorization. Shadowfall Actual, this is Havston Command, Wright responded. You are green for execution. Repeat, green for execution. Copy that. Commencing operation. The surveillance feeds showed the extraction teams moving with precision through the designated approach vectors. The operation proceeded with textbook efficiency, each element coordinating seamlessly, each checkpoint cleared according to timeline. Whatever doubts might have lingered about command cohesion after the security breach had been erased by the professionalism now on display. 37 minutes after commencement, Merrick's voice returned. Havston Command, Shadowfall Actual, primary package secured, moving to extraction point. A current of relief passed through the command center. The most critical phase, locating and securing the intelligence asset, had been accomplished without incident. Shadowfall Actual, be advised, Wright responded, eyes on the weather monitoring system. Weather front moving faster than predicted. Extraction window may be compressed by approaching storm system. Copy that. Adjusting extraction timeline. New ETA 14 minutes. Reeves moved to the weather display, studying the approaching front. Captain, have alternative extraction options. Standing by. That storm could ground air assets. Yes, ma'am. The next 12 minutes passed in tense monitoring as the extraction team navigated toward the rendezvous point, the storm front accelerating toward the same location. The margin for error narrowed with each passing minute. Havston Command were at extraction point, Merrick reported. Visibility deteriorating rapidly, requesting immediate extraction. Extraction team is 3 minutes out, Wright responded. Storm intensifying, wind speeds approaching unsafe threshold for helicopter operations. Reeves stepped forward. Commander, this is General Reeves. Wind patterns indicate a narrow corridor approaching from the southwest. If you can reposition 200 meters in that direction, you'll find a temporary weather window. Copy that, General. Moving to recommended position. The command center watched as the team's tracking indicators moved southwest, racing against the closing weather system. The extraction helicopter appeared on radar, fighting crosswinds as it approached. Visual contact with extraction team, the pilot reported. Commencing pickup, 30 seconds to touchdown. For a moment, it seemed the operation would conclude without complications. Then multiple alarms activated simultaneously. Unidentified vehicles approaching from the east, an intelligence analyst called out. High speed, tactical formation, possible hostile response team. Shadowfall actual, be advised, Wright transmitted urgently. Potential hostiles approaching your position, estimated 2 minutes to contact. Copy that, Merrick responded, his voice steady despite the escalating threat. Package secured in helicopter, ground team establishing defensive perimeter. Reeves moved to the tactical display. Commander, do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Primary mission is asset extraction, not confrontation. Understood, General. Helicopter lifting off now with package. Ground team will delay pursuit forces if required. The surveillance feed showed the extraction helicopter ascending through the narrowing weather corridor, banking sharply to avoid the worst of the storm front. On the ground, Merrick's team had positioned themselves to block the approach road, ready to cover the helicopter's escape if needed. Hostile vehicles 1 minute out, the analyst updated. Shadowfall ground team, prepare for immediate extraction, Reeves ordered. Secondary extraction team moving to your position from the northwest. Negative, General, Merrick responded. Secondary team won't reach us before hostiles arrive. Ground team will create diversion to ensure package clears the area. The implication was clear. Merrick intended to engage the pursuing forces, putting his team at risk to ensure the intelligence asset escaped safely. Commander, Reeves's voice carried unmistakable authority. You will not engage. That's an order. With respect, ma'am, tactical situation requires immediate decision. Hostiles will have visual on extraction helicopter, unless delayed. Wright looked to Reeves, tension evident in his expression. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, with Merrick prepared to risk himself and his team to complete the mission. Commander Merrick, Reeves said, her tone modulating to one she rarely used, the full weight of 4-star command. Execute fallback protocol Sierra immediately. Authentication, Sierra Echo 417 Tango. There was a moment of silence on the communication channel. Authentication confirmed, Merrick finally responded. Executing fallback protocol Sierra. The tactical display showed Merrick's team abandoning their blocking position, moving instead toward a ravine to the west. A concealed approach to an alternate extraction point that hadn't been in the original operation briefing. Hostiles continuing past ground team position, the analyst reported with surprise. They're not pursuing. Repeat, hostiles are not in pursuit of our teams. Reeves nodded, having anticipated this development. They're after the helicopter, not our ground forces. The asset is their primary target. But the helicopter has a significant lead and better maneuverability, Wright observed. Precisely, Reeves replied, which is why Commander Merrick's team wasn't in actual danger. The pursuing force had no tactical reason to engage ground personnel when their target was airborne. Understanding dawned on Wright's face. You knew they would bypass our ground team. Probability favored that assessment, she acknowledged, but Commander Merrick was prepared to engage regardless, putting mission success above personal safety. That's what we train for, Wright noted. Yes, but training sometimes creates reflexive responses rather than optimal ones. Reeves returned her attention to the tactical display. In this case, the optimal response was disengagement, allowing the hostiles to pursue a target they cannot catch while preserving our forces for future operations. The command center tracked both teams' progress, the helicopter safely clearing the weather system with the intelligence asset aboard, Merrick's ground team reaching the alternate extraction point without incident. the pursuing hostile force, realizing they could not intercept the helicopter, eventually abandoned their chase and withdrew from the operational area. "Mission complete," Wright announced as the final elements cleared the area. "Assets secured, all personnel accounted for, no casualties." A quiet satisfaction permeated the command center. Operation Shadowfall had succeeded despite complications, a testament to the renewed effectiveness of the base's command structure. "Well done, everyone," Reeves acknowledged. "Thorough after-action review in 6 hours. Identify what worked and what can be improved." As the operational teams began standard shutdown procedures, she moved toward the exit. "Captain Wright, please inform Commander Merrick I'll meet him in the main briefing room upon his return." "Yes, ma'am." 2 hours later, Merrick entered the briefing room, still in his field uniform, the signs of the operation visible in the mud on his boots and the tactical focus in his eyes. He came to attention when he saw General Reeves waiting for him. "At ease, Commander," she said. "Congratulations on mission success." "Thank you, General." He relaxed his posture, but remained professional. "Though I should apologize for nearly countermanding your orders in the field." "Nearly being the operative word," she observed. "You ultimately executed the correct tactical response. After you invoked fallback protocol Sierra," he pointed out. "A protocol I wasn't aware existed until that moment." "Sometimes the best contingency plans are those the enemy doesn't know about," Reeves replied, "including our own forces, when necessary." Merrick nodded, understanding the security principle involved. "May I ask about the protocol now?" "You may. It was established 48 hours ago, after we identified the security breach. Captain Wright and I created several backup extraction scenarios unknown to the General Command, insurance against any remaining intelligence leaks." "A wise precaution," Merrick acknowledged, "though I wish I'd been informed." "Would you have made different decisions in the field if you had known?" He considered the question carefully. "Probably not. The tactical situation appeared to demand immediate defensive action, which illustrates why some information is compartmentalized," she explained. "Knowledge of fallback options might have altered your instinctive response, potentially revealing the contingency to observing hostiles. It was another lesson in the complexities of command. Sometimes incomplete information served operational security better than full disclosure, even among trusted personnel." "I understand," he said finally, "and I appreciate the insight." "Good." Reeves moved to the briefing room window, looking out at the base where so much had changed in such a short time. "Now, about your next assignment." Merrick straightened, prepared for whatever assessment she had reached. "JSOC is establishing a new operational training division," she continued, "focused on adaptive command under atypical conditions. The division needs a commanding officer with recent, relevant experience in exactly that area." The implication was clear, but Merrick waited for explicit confirmation. "I've recommended you for command of the division, Commander," Reeves stated, turning to face him. "Promotion to captain included, effective immediately upon acceptance." The offer was far beyond what Merrick had anticipated. Not just advancement, but the opportunity to shape an entirely new command philosophy within special operations. "I'm honored, General," he said, genuine appreciation in his voice, "and somewhat surprised, given my initial performance during your assessment." "Your initial performance revealed blind spots," she acknowledged. "Your subsequent adaptation revealed capacity for growth. JSOC needs commanders who can recognize and correct their own limitations, not those who never make mistakes." The assessment was fair, and more generous than Merrick might have given himself. "Thank you, General. I accept the assignment." "Good. You'll report to Quantico in 2 weeks for formal briefing. In the meantime, complete your handover here and prepare recommendations for your successor." "Yes, ma'am." A knock at the door interrupted them. Captain Wright entered with a data tablet. "Pardon the interruption, General. JSOC transport is ready when you are, and this just came through for Commander Merrick, his official promotion orders." Wright handed the tablet to Merrick, who scanned the document with quiet satisfaction. The orders confirmed everything General Reeves had outlined, with the additional note that his performance during recent security challenges had been exemplary and worthy of special commendation. "Congratulations, Commander, or should I say Captain," Wright said with genuine pleasure. "Well deserved." "Thank you, Captain Wright." Merrick handed the tablet back. "Though much of the credit belongs to General Reeves," Her assessment revealed areas for improvement I hadn't recognized myself. "The best evaluations always do," Wright replied. "General, the transport crew is asking about your departure timeline." "Tell them 20 minutes, Reeves instructed. "I have one more matter to discuss with Commander Merrick." As Wright departed, Reeves moved to the briefing room table. From her pocket, she withdrew a small box and placed it on the table's surface. "Your captain's insignia," she explained. "Normally these would be presented at a formal ceremony, but I thought you might appreciate receiving them here, where your journey toward this promotion truly began." Merrick opened the box to find the double silver bars of a Navy captain gleaming against dark fabric. The sight represented not just professional advancement, but personal transformation, a tangible symbol of lessons learned and perspective gained. "General, I'm not sure what to say. Thank you seems inadequate." "Then don't say it," she replied. "Show it by living the principles you've learned. Evaluate people by capability, not appearance. Listen to insights regardless of their source. Question assumptions, especially your own." "I will," he promised. She nodded, satisfied with his commitment. "One last thing, Commander. Do you remember your first question to me in this room?" "I believe I asked about your rank," he recalled, the memory now tinged with irony. "You did," she confirmed. "And I told you it wasn't relevant to the mission parameters? Do you understand now why I said that?" "I think so," Merrick reflected. "Rank is an administrative designation, not a measure of competence or character. By focusing on your lack of insignia, I missed the substance of your contributions." "Precisely." She moved toward the door, her departure imminent. "Remember that lesson when you command your training division. Some of the best insights will come from those with the least formal authority." "I won't forget," he assured her. At the doorway, General Reeves paused. "This room looks different now, doesn't it?" Merrick glanced around the briefing room, physically unchanged since their first encounter, yet transformed by perspective. "Yes, ma'am. Very different. Growth changes how we see everything, Commander. Not just others, but ourselves." With that final observation, she departed, leaving Merrick alone with his new insignia and the profound lessons that had earned it. The following morning, the base gathered for a formal change of command ceremony. Merrick, now wearing his captain's bars, addressed the assembled personnel with a new clarity of purpose. "The past week has taught us valuable lessons about security, about command, and about perception," he began. "We discovered that rank insignia doesn't always reveal true authority, that competence speaks louder than position, and that listening to all voices, regardless of their apparent status, strengthens our mission effectiveness." The officers and enlisted personnel listened attentively, many of them having witnessed firsthand the dramatic events that had reshaped their command philosophy. "As I prepare to depart for my new assignment," Merrick continued, "I leave you with one core principle. True leadership is earned through action, not announced by insignia. Judge yourselves and others by demonstrated capability, not by symbols of authority." After the ceremony concluded, Merrick found himself at the base perimeter, looking toward the airfield, where General Reeves's transport had departed the previous evening. Lieutenant Myers approached, now designated as interim commander pending permanent replacement. "Sir, may I ask a personal question?" "Go ahead, Lieutenant." "When did you realize who General Reeves really was? Before or after the security breach?" Merrick considered the question, remembering his initial dismissive treatment of the unmarked officer in his briefing room. "I saw her insignia in the file, but I didn't truly understand who she was until much later." "I don't follow, sir." "Rank tells you someone's administrative position, Lieutenant. It doesn't tell you who they are." Merrick turned from the airfield, facing the younger officer directly. "I saw General Reeves's 4 stars, but I didn't understand her capability until I watched her in action, making decisions under pressure, anticipating threats, prioritizing mission over ego." "That's what made her a general," Myers suggested. "No," Merrick corrected gently. "That's who she was before becoming a general. The stars recognized what already existed. They didn't create it." Myers nodded slowly, processing the distinction. "Is that why she doesn't wear them? To see who recognizes her authority without the symbols?" "Partly," Merrick acknowledged. "But I think it's also because she understands something many of us forget. True authority comes from competence, judgment, and character, not from what's pinned to your collar." The conversation lingered in Merrick's thoughts as he completed his final duties at the base. 3 days later, as he prepared for departure to his new command, he discovered an envelope on his desk marked simply with his name. Inside was a handwritten note from General Reeves. "Captain Merrick, 20 years ago. A commander like you dismissed me because I wore no rank insignia. His career survived, but his effectiveness was permanently limited by his inability to recognize authority without symbols. You faced the same test, but demonstrated capacity for growth, the essential quality of genuine leadership. Your new command will shape officers who must function in environments where insignia means nothing and competence means everything. Remember the lesson of our first meeting. Leadership is earned in silence before it is proclaimed with words." General E. Reeves, Joint Special Operations Command. Attached to the note was a small silver pin, not a rank insignia or decoration, but a simple marker recognizing membership in a classified JSOS division. The kind of identification that would be meaningless to most, but instantly recognized by those who truly understood military capability. Merrick carefully secured the pin inside his uniform pocket, not to be displayed, but to serve as a personal reminder of the lessons he had learned. True authority needed no announcement. Real leadership spoke through action, not symbols. As he departed the base for his new command, he passed the briefing room where his journey had begun. Through the window, he could see officers gathered around the tactical table, engaged in earnest discussion. A junior lieutenant was speaking, gesturing to something on the display, while more senior officers listened attentively. The sight confirmed that the lessons would continue beyond his departure, that the principles General Reeves had demonstrated were taking root in the command culture. Authority was being recognized by substance rather than symbols, insight valued regardless of its source. In his pocket, the silver pin rested quietly, a reminder that the most powerful forces often operate without declaration, that true leadership reveals itself in moments of challenge, and that wisdom sometimes arrives in the form of a quiet woman with no visible rank, whose very presence changes everything. Have you ever witnessed someone earn respect, not through position or title, but through quiet competence and character? Those rare individuals who lead through actions rather than announcements, who command attention without demanding it? Share your story of encountering unexpected leadership in the comments below, and subscribe to explore more stories about the power of perception, the truth behind appearances, and the unexpected ways true authority reveals itself when we least expect it.